A quick warning, this episode contains conversations about addiction. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, I'm Carmen.
I'm Jackie.
And I'm Emily, also known as Douglas.
And we're your hosts. Welcome to Generation SOS On Record, a podcast that invites people to share their uncensored stories about mental health and substance use. We invite you to open your minds and your ears and allow these stories to speak louder than statistics ever could.
I never really had someone that was going through the same
that
thing.
Musicians feel deeper.
You kind of feel like you can't tell anyone, which is like the opposite of what you should do.
Saying that I'm too young to have been included in a conversation, which I kind of call bullshit on.
Okay, so we are recording. Welcome, Savannah. Thank you so much for coming on. We're really excited to have you here, to hear your story. So our first question to you is just broadly, can you tell us a little bit about your relationship to substances growing up?
I have been around substance abuse since I was probably 5 that I can remember. My father has struggled with substance abuse for now over 20 years. He went to prison for his substance abuse, is most likely going back in the near future. So I've been around it for a really long time. Being a single kid or a single child, I never really had anyone to lean on and with siblings. I was the only kid in my family. So I kept a lot of stuff to myself, and I still do. I mean, I do tell my friends, whatever, but I never really had someone that was going through the same thing as I am at the age of, 5 when it started.
So do you feel like that relationship, your father's relationship with substances, do you feel like that's impacted your own relationship with substances growing up and now being in young adulthood?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, for the most part, I've steered away from, I saw what it did to my dad and a lot of my family members. And I have just kind of seen that I didn't want to take that path as well. I don't want to be a beat down dad or a beat down mom. That has their whole life is just around substances. They don't care about anything else other than themselves and making themselves happy. That's what I've really, noticed with substance abuse. It's a very selfish thing. Just my point of view, I think, because I just saw it impact my dad where he only cared about himself. He really didn't care about me and how I felt about it, or my mom. My mom ended up divorcing my dad because of it when I was 5. So yeah, it's definitely impacted me a lot.
Yeah.
So you said it started, or the first time you can kind of remember is 5 years old, and that's also kind of around the time your parents got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your relationship like with your dad post-divorce? Were you seeing him a lot, or?
It had to do with, making meth and making all of these different substances. He was a very wealthy guy. We lived in a huge house on the lake. We built it. He had the perfect life, a beautiful wife, a beautiful, me, daughter. And he got obsessed with the fact of making money. He really is I say this because it is true in my eyes that he is without a doubt probably the smartest guy I have ever met. He can build anything. He's a engineer, he's a welder, he can do about everything. So when he started reading how easy it was to make these drugs, he was like, I can just make money and I can just make it myself. So that's kind of what I think he got addicted to, that income of cash flow.
Right.
And it really didn't affect his work either. He would wake up and go to work.
What was his work? What did he do?
Oh, he did construction.
Mm-hmm.
He did lot clearing. So like taking down trees and building neighborhoods, and he had his own business.
It's interesting how it's in the same town.
Oh yeah.
That's where it's like, wow, the same guy that could get your lot cleared, you could see on Lake Norman.
Oh yeah.
Selling drugs at the same bar.
I was always, I mean, my dad had a lot of run-ins with the cops. I was always told growing up that you don't tell them who your dad is. Like, that's just, like, you don't tell the cops who your dad is, because his name was so big in Lake Norman from all the run-ins with the police that he was like, you need to stay clear of my name.
So was this, like, obviously you're figuring it out as you get older. Things are like coming up, as in, why can't I tell the police who my father is?
Mm-hmm.
What is dad making? Why is it weird when I go over to dad's house? So how was your mom kind of going about, like, how was that discussed?
I remember this so clearly. So when my dad first, when he went to prison, I was probably six at a time, 7.
Okay.
I was downstairs in this house and I was watching Sweet Life on Deck. I can remember this clear as day. And I heard my mom upstairs and she was on the phone with my grandma. And I remember this sentence. She goes, I'm about to go downstairs and tell her. So I kind of just like didn't really think about it. And my mom came downstairs and she told me, you know, your dad has, she put it in the best terms that I guess a 6-year-old can comprehend, is that your dad's in trouble. He broke the law and he's going to have to spend some time in jail for the mistakes that he has made. At that time, I didn't know how severe it was. I mean, I knew, yeah, dad did drugs. Yeah, dad, the police and dad don't get along. I mean, that's how I interpreted it. I mean, it wasn't until I got a hold of technology when I was probably, 8 or 9, and I decided to look my dad up and see all the charges that he had. I mean, my mom wanted to, she's the best woman ever. She just wanted to, she knew that he had done wrong, and she didn't want me to feel, I don't know the right term, but like I hate, she didn't want me to hate my dad, even though all the stuff that he has done, she didn't want me to have that animosity. She wanted me to still have a relationship with him, because at the end of the day, yeah, it's my dad, it's my father, it's the one who created me, and it's up to me if I want to have that relationship with him after the fact.
Wow, that's amazing.
But yeah, with the whole, run-ins with the cops and stuff, I mean, there was a point where she was like, okay, this is enough, and you're not going to be going over to your dad's anymore. But it was shortly after that he went to jail, so it really didn't even matter. So my relationship with my dad is probably the worst that it has ever been right now. Oh my gosh, it's so fresh right now. So in the beginning of this year, he just took a wide turn. He's threatening my family. He has threatened the tenants that that rent from his property. He's been shooting. He's been doing drugs again. He's been hooked on painkillers. He's an alcoholic. He just recently went back to jail about last week. He went back to jail. It's like a maze because so much has happened.
Savannah, how are you? I mean, there's a lot to get out in words, but in general, how are you doing?
I'm just so numb to everything. I've gone through this throughout my whole life. In the beginning of the year, I really did care, and I really was reaching out to him, and we ended up even having an intervention. That intervention did not go good. I was there. my uncle was there, and then we had a mediator, which was one of their close friends, just to kind of, be there in case anything happened. So at the beginning of the year, I was doing good. I was trying. Now I'm just like, fuck it. I don't care. I really don't. I don't care anymore. I have so much hate now that it's just like, if he goes back to prison, whatever, I'm done. Yeah. I've done everything that I can do. I was paying his bills. I was, helping him out with his alcoholism. I was trying to find him rehabs in, every place and, around North Carolina. And it got to the point where he could say that he wanted to go to rehab, but he was never going to do it. So I have just cut all communication with him. I have blocked him for now 3 months. He apparently is on the run. He's manic right now. He thinks that the cops are out to get him again. So wow. He told me to have a good life, and haven't tried to reach out to him. I don't care. I tried all that I can do, and it's pointless because it doesn't matter.
What is it like looking back on a relationship that you used to have with your dad, and do you see that being recovered in the future, or you think this is kind of permanent?
I think 100% this is permanent. I really tried. I mean, when he got out of prison, he was doing really good. He started his business back up again. He built a house. He was living in it. He was doing really good. He was even like in college sending me money. Like, and I never asked. He was actually pretty good. And then I guess about 2 years ago is when it started going downhill again. And I don't think it's ever going to get recovered. There's things that have been said and there's things that have been done that I'm not going to parent my parent anymore. I'm not going to sit here and tell him what he needs to do. He's 61 years old and he can make these decisions for himself. I've tried everything I can do.
Do you have people who you can relate to who have gone through similar things? Do you feel like this is a hidden part of your identity? Like, how is that like in relationship to your friends in your young life?
So, my boyfriend now, Austin, he has a similar situation going on with him. It's almost identical, really. It's crazy that it has happened that way, but his dad went to jail, prison, got out about a year ago, and his dad is literally doing the same thing my dad is. So it's easier to relate with each other because I didn't have that growing up. I didn't know anyone who was going through the same thing as me. It's not normal. Like, it's just a not normal thing. And I mean, it's not normal for also, people to be expressing it at such a young age, but it's definitely helped a lot. Talking to him about it because he can relate so well and, help me out. And I know I have friends that, also help me out with it as well. But it's just, I feel like I just have gotten so numb. I just like, don't even care about it anymore. It's just like, it is what it is at this point. I mean, I swear to God, I should have a Lifetime movie with all the shit I've been through, but it's absolutely wild.
You're still excelling, and it's unfortunate you can't be a part of that. It's
definitely not going to hold me back, actually. Like, it's going to make me, I've just realized that it made me stronger in a way, and it's really, really humbled me. Like, I don't look at people and be like, oh, well, they have it made. No, everyone's gone through some shit in their fucking life. Like, you might not know what it is, but exactly. Like, I can't look at anyone anymore and just be like, you have a picture perfect life. Like, you could see me in the street and think, oh, wow, like, white girl has a nice car, I bet nothing's happened to her. No, like, you just can't judge people. Like, it's just humbled me a lot.
And I mean, knowing that this is you, this is your boyfriend, this is a million other people that we've met and that wouldn't just open up and share it with us on a podcast. What would you say to those other people who are maybe younger, maybe a 10-year-old who was like, why is my dad partying all night? What would you say to those little kids?
I would definitely say it's nothing that they have done. This is your parents' mistakes, and You know, they're old enough to make their own choices, and as much as you want to change a person, you can't change a person. They have to make that decision for themselves. They have to have their own life, and you know, it's nothing that you did.
Yeah.
I don't know how I went so long, and I still don't go to therapy. And I've thought about it so many times, and I'm actually like actively like searching for a therapist just to kind of just talk about my feelings, just because I don't really, because I've just become so numb. But I think it would be really good for me to do that.
Yeah.
If you don't talk about, I mean, it just builds and builds, and now you're 23, you know? And so,
well, I was just always embarrassed. I was so embarrassed of the fact that this was going on. And not a lot of my friends, not even their parents, were divorced. Like, that wasn't even a thing. So to say that my parents are divorced, I live in an apartment, my dad's in prison, all this stuff, it was embarrassing for me. I always just wanted to really just fit in with the crowd as much as I could without, you know, obviously not being myself. But it was just something I kept in my back pocket and didn't really discuss. I think that like, I don't know, like I just, you know, even going to church, like people they knew because they saw the news, they looked at us different. I wasn't allowed to hang out with certain kids because their parents knew about it, which really affected me growing up. But my mom never told me that was the reason. It just kind of, you know, something as I got older had to realize. She sheltered me from, you know, that hurt of knowing that. And it sucks that people judged me and judged our family based on something that we had no control of. It wasn't our mistake. It was, you know, my father's mistake.
Yeah. And
that was really, really hard.
And I bet that can explain some resentment towards him. Thinking
Oh,
about, like, all those times where you didn't fully understand why, but you knew something was up. And obviously, you're 6 years old. You had nothing to do with any of that.
I mean, yeah, even going to father-daughter dances. I didn't have a dad. My grandpa would go with me, or my uncle would go with me. Like, that was embarrassing too. Where's your dad? I don't even remember what I said. I just think I said that he was out of town or something. Yeah. That was like, that still hurts me to this day that, you know, he wasn't there for those really big childhood moments that I needed him for. And he still doesn't understand it, and he'll never apologize to me for that. He will always just say, he'll just make up something and be like, you know, you'll never accept the fact, or you'll just always resent me for it. And I've never yelled at him about that. But I told him how I felt, and it triggered him to can be combative. So I just stopped talking to him about it. And then one day it all just came out. It was not good.
I mean, you are very aware. You remember it. I mean, I applaud you for remembering this and also being like, this did happen. I'm being blunt about it. I'm not covering it up. Like, being honest with yourself about the experiences you went through.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think I blurted out a lot of the bad things. I think I just blurted out, and sometimes I just will think about something and like a memory will come back, or like something will trigger me and a memory will come back, and I'll be like, holy crap. I mean, I remember this one time I was at my grandma's and he was picking me up to drive me back to my mom's, and he wasn't feeling good or something like that. And before we had left my grandma's, he got out a pill bottle and he went to the bathroom. Obviously, I think it was something that made him tired. I just don't know what the drug was, but we got into the car and he fell asleep at the wheel, and I was screaming to the top of my lungs, like trying to get him to wake up. But the thing is he was awake, but his eyes were just like, he was just coming like in and out of consciousness. So I would just scream at him until finally, I don't know what triggered him. I think a car had saw me scream and saw that he had his eyes closed and then like was not coherent. They finally called the cops or something, and he saw that the cops were behind him. So he like perked up and he pulled over on the side of the road. He went to the back of his truck in the toolbox. He got something out, and I just remember him sniffing something, and he woke back up.
And what happened with the cops from there?
They drove past because they didn't see anything happen at that point. I think it really triggered him to like I need to wake up. I need to wake up right now.
But you were at risk. I mean, you, his daughter, who.
Oh, yeah.
You were at risk. And I'm sure that's not the only time that you were at risk. So the trauma is danger.
It was definitely a traumatic experience that I will always remember.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more that I'll just always remember.
So you gave us advice to a kid going through it. What would you say to someone in the position of your mom? You know, the balance between the openness and the shelter, protection.
Your kids come first. It doesn't matter. If they're in that situation, you need to figure out how to be the strong one. My mom got me out of that situation as fast as she could. She stopped it pretty fast where I wasn't allowed to go see him anymore. But just being that support for your kid is the most important thing. You know, telling them that like, you can talk to me, you know, let me know everything that goes on. Because I didn't tell her everything that happened between me and my dad because I didn't want the drama. I still loved my dad, even though he had put me through all of this stuff. Like, I still loved him and I did want to see him. And I knew it was going to cause a lot of problems if I were to have told her. I wish I would have, but just letting your kid know that, you know, you're there for them and it doesn't matter what it is, you can talk to them about it. I think that's the most important thing.
And I know you had mentioned, you know, you had done an intervention with your uncle and taken steps. Were there not failed attempts, I hate to say that, but I'm saying, were there attempts at, you know, treatment for your father and the substance abuse, or, you know, was that like even mentioned? Because I know it's hard when, you know, the law is involved and they're breaking those types of laws and he's going to prison.
He's just very hard-headed. Like, there's just nothing that's going to get past his mentality. Mm-hmm. And I know even being his daughter, I tried to tell him, and I was like, look, you're not going to be here for that much longer if you continue. You're not going to see me walk down the aisle. You're not going to be here for your grandkid. And he just kind of gave me I don't really care. I don't care. I'll do whatever I want to kind of thing. And I know that's not him talking. That's the drugs talking. Right. And that's when I decided, I was like, I got to find him a rehab place. And it was just a whole lot of mess going on until he told me that he went to rehab and it was a lie. And he ended up going to jail the next day. So at 61 years old, there isn't a lot I can do as a 23-year-old. I mean,
you have to want to get help because you yourself cannot force him. And it seems like you're saying he does not want help. And you always hear it, you know, recognizing and saying a problem's the first step. But it kind of sounds like that is all that you feel like you can do.
Period. And I don't want anyone to think that, like, I don't love him, because I still do. I still would, you know, I'll do anything if it meant that he would be better. But it's just come to the point where my safety is in the way, my family's safety, you know, my mom's. he has a burner phone right now where he is contacting my mom at least 5 times a day. And she's to the point where she's like, as long as he's not contacting you, I'll put up with it. Because as soon as I block him, he's going to go straight to you. And that's another thing, bringing me back to the question, like, you know, supporting your child, doing anything that you can. I really just appreciate her knowing what that's going to do to me if he starts trying to be in contact with me. And I think me just separating myself from him is probably the best thing I can do right now. And he knows how I stand on it. And I really don't want him, obviously, to die from it and, you know, go back to prison. But I also wish that he does go back so that he can at least just sober up to stay a little bit longer on Earth, because I don't know how long it might be. Yeah. And that sucks to even say, but it's the truth.
Is there anything else that you want to get out there about your story? I mean, you've covered everything and been so brutally honest with us. We cannot thank you enough. But if there's anything else you want to share.
I don't want the people that hear this, like, thinking that I did this in a good way. Like, I wish I would have gotten therapy a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because I do have sudden outbursts where I carry so much weight on my shoulders that it's a moment before I just break down. And I broke down about a week ago and just had a whole mental, you know, release. I cried and I screamed, and, you know, that felt good, but it wasn't the healthiest thing I could have done. But, you know, I think I just take on a lot of weight and don't really tell my feelings. And because a lot of people don't really understand what I go through or what I've gone through. So it's hard for people to relate to me. Even just talking like this right now is very helpful, just to tell my story and what I've gone through.
Yeah.
So I thank you guys a lot for being my therapy session for the day.
Big takeaway. We love therapy. I'll be the first to say it.
And
Therapy's
this was helpful
huge.
for us. It's like, I'm learning too. That whole story, I had no idea. And I've known you for years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank y'all so much for letting me spill my beans towards y'all.
The beans were greatly appreciated.
And I want to say one more thing. I hope that everyone or anyone who's listening, don't be embarrassed about the things that you have gone through. Like, that was a big resentment of my life, was just being totally embarrassed about talking about, you know, my past. And I don't think it's an embarrassing thing anymore. I came to the realization that, you know, shit fucking happens. Like, it happens a lot. And you shouldn't be embarrassed about it. You just need to talk about it, really.
Yeah.
I hope that kids really realize that it's nothing that they've done wrong.
For more conversations like these, or to find a support system near you, go to generationsos.org.